Okay, all right.
Hi, and welcome to the English III EOI Prep Bootcamp. My name is Yolanda Merriman, and I'm a Teacher Support Manager at Epic Charter Schools. And the purpose of this bootcamp is to go through test preparation for the actual EOI testing. It is not to teach you English. That's very difficult to do in 2 hours. So what we're going to do is get you prepped for the EOI test. What we're going to be utilizing is the Parent Student Teacher Guide that you can download from the Oklahoma Department of Education website, or you can get a copy from our school. So I'll be referring to the page numbers in this book, so if you can have this book handy. If you don't have it handy, if you'll pause the video, go ahead and download it, and then we'll work through this booklet today. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is on page 10 of the guide. It's the blueprint for how the test is going to be done. On the blueprint, you can see that the test, it gives you the percentages of how the test is going to be broken down. You have vocabulary, which is 8 to 11%. Then the standard 2, comprehension, is 22 to 28%. And then literature is 24 to 28%. And then you have research and information, which is 8 to 10%. And then down here is the writing portion. The writing portion is what most students are most concerned about. And if you look here at the writing, grammar, usage, and mechanics portion of the blueprint, you can see that the writing portion of the test is actually a small portion of the test. It's only around 33% of the entire total grade. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about standards. Oklahoma calls them the Oklahoma Academic Standards, or you might have heard of PASS objectives, the priority academic skills. If you haven't heard of those, then you might have heard of Common Core. That's not us, not yet, but that is what we're talking about, is the academic standards. That is what the test is based on. English III standards are broken down into these 4 categories: vocabulary, comprehension, literature, research, and information. Just to be clear, your curriculums are designed to cover many aspects of these standards, but none of our curriculums that we currently offer cover all of the standards. That's why it's very important to work with your teachers in every grade level at the school to make sure that you learn the standards as set forth by the State Department of Education. I will say that daily reading and journal writing is a very important component of any grade here at our school. It's an excellent way to keep up your skills and to gain new ones. I highly encourage every student to be reading a novel for pleasure outside of their curriculum so they can increase their comprehension, and it also builds their vocabulary. Let's talk a little bit about how the test is administered. You can find this information in your guide as well. This information starts on page 4. The actual guide does have a mistake in it. The guide says that the writing prompt and the writing test will be administered by paper and pencil. It is not. It is an online format. That has changed this year because we have changed our testing vendors, and so the writing portion will be completely online. So if you could have your students or you go through and mark out where it says administered in paper, pencil, answer document, and at the bottom of the page write online writing test. This is an online writing test. Section 1 of the test is the writing prompt, and then section 2 and section 3 are content related. And those are reading passages and multiple choice questions based on the passages that they are reading. The writing task takes around 80 minutes to complete, including the proctor or administrator reading the directions. The test is not strictly timed. Sometimes our students worry about, am I going to have enough time to finish the test? Yes, you will. You will be given enough time. If for some reason we come to the end of the testing time and the student needs more time, then we will make arrangements for that student to move to a different area and to continue their test. I will say this, that students who finish a test section early, please stop, review what you have done. Please try not to be the first student out of the room or the first student finished. Make sure that you have completed the test in its entirety, you have checked your work, and you make sure that you are completed and happy with everything that you have presented. Now, once a test section has been completed, the student will not be allowed to return that session. So, if you have a booklet that has instructions and they have closed the booklet, then you are finished. You will not be allowed to go back into the booklet. If you have a test that's online and you click finish and you keep clicking out, you will not be allowed to return to that section. So please make sure you speak to the test administrator or test proctor before you completely exit out of any test session. Let's look at what types of writing modes will be on the test. This is on page 11 of the guide. I want to go through this with you, and I want you to get out your pencil and highlight certain things here in this section. These are the writing modes that we may see at the writing test. There are 5 of them. We have a narrative essay, a descriptive essay, an expository essay, a persuasive essay, and a reflective essay. So let's break them down just a little bit. The narrative essay is about personal experience. This is telling a story. The most important word in this section for a narrative essay is details. Please have your student circle or underline the word details. The main thing to remember about a narrative essay, other than the details, please have them write the words sequence or order. We want the narrative essay to move and unfold over time. We do not want the story to jump with flashbacks and flash forwards and flash sideways. We want it to move from beginning to end, A to Z. So sequence and order is the most important thing here to remember about a narrative essay. The second one we're going to look at is a descriptive essay. A descriptive essay is describing something, a person, place, thing, or experience, with enough vivid details that the reader can imagine what the writer is describing. Please underline the words vivid details. And then write underneath the descriptive essay, paint a picture with words. You want to be painting a picture with your words, being very descriptive so that the person can see the image in their mind with your words. The third one is an expository essay. Expository is informative, and it's helping your readers understand new information. There's a lot of ways to construct an expository essay, including a compare and contrast, cause and effect, problem and solution, or extended definition. But the main thing to remember here is that an expository essay is informative. Underline the word informative, and then right below expository essay, do not give your opinion. An expository essay is not the place for you to give your opinion. If they ask you to write an expository essay, a step-by-step progression of how to teach someone to brush their teeth, you would not say, I like this brand of toothpaste. That is your opinion, and it does not have a place in an expository essay. The fourth type is a persuasive essay. The persuasive essay is there to convince the readers to think or act in a certain way or to accept a particular viewpoint. And the writer is going to support their position with evidence. There are 2 very important words here. First is convince. You're convincing someone, persuading them to your side, to your opinion, to your viewpoint. The second important word is support. It is extremely important to give evidence for why a person should believe the viewpoint you are writing about. And remember, with a persuasive essay, please write after persuasive essay, call to action. You want to use the final paragraph of your essay to call the person to come to your side, to accept your viewpoint. Why? Why is it good to do your viewpoint? Why is it good to accept your viewpoint? Call them to action. The final type of essay is a reflective essay. It presents the writer's personal reflections. This is an opinion piece or a reaction to a quotation or an idea. Now keep in mind this is a general definition here where it says the writer may choose to write about literature, life experience, or a person who's had an impact on them. But that is not what the writing prompts are during the EOI testing. It is not that broad. They will give you very specific information with a very specific prompt that the student needs to write towards. Here at EPIC, we believe that writing is very, very important. Writing is around 33% of the overall scoring of this test. The largest portion of that writing that's graded is based on grammar, usage, and mechanics. They've been writing for 10 to 11 years now in their school career, and they should have learned the correct methods for those. We're talking about punctuation, capitalization. We're talking about writing correctly the names of cities, peoples, places, and books. If you feel weak in your writing, we also have an online writing boot camp. You can watch those videos. They were originally done for 5th and 8th grade, but the boot camp for online writing can teach the elements of reading a rubric, prewriting strategies, and more. And those type of things do go across all of the grades. So let's talk a little bit about the writing portion now. I want you to follow the steps when you're doing the writing portion. First, you read the prompt carefully. Second, you cub your prompt. I'm going to show you how to do that quickly here in just a second. Then you do your prewriting strategy, and then you construct your final draft. You need to grade yourself accordingly to the rubric and the guidelines that they give you. It's very important to use the writer's checklist button in the writing portion. So let's talk about cubbing your prompt. What is cubbing your prompt? Not that kind of cub. It's this kind of cub. Cub your prompt. Cub stands for circle, underline, and bracket. On your paper, on page 11, you have blank space at the bottom. If you would please write cub at the top, and then pause the video and write down what cub stands for. Circle, underline, and bracket. Please pause your video now to write this down, and leave enough room at the bottom to write the 6 steps of cubbing with it. If you can pause your video when you're done writing the cub part and write down the 6 steps to cubbing, and then I will go through these 6 steps. Step number 1 is to read the prompt. We all know how to read the prompt if we're sitting there doing the test. But this is the important part, is rereading the prompt. We want to make sure that we slow down and read with emphasis and reread the prompt to make sure we're getting the full sense out of the prompt that they're giving us. Number 3, we want to circle the bossy words. A bossy word is a word that tells us something to do. Write, include, be sure, anything that we can answer. What do they want us to write? What do they want us to include? What do they want us to be sure to do? So we circle the bossy words. Number 4, write the word what or a question mark above the bossy words. This reminds us to answer that question. What do they want us to include? What do they want us to write? Number 5 is underline the answer to the bossy what. What do they want us to write? Underline that answer. Number 6 is bracket any words you think are important. Words that give us details, number words, things that have information that we want to include in our prompt. I'm going to show you a sample prompt that was from an 8th grade writing prompt, and I'm just going to break it down and show you the steps that we want to go through. Once you have cubbed your prompt, there's one more step, and that's doing a prewriting strategy. The web cluster is what I want everyone to focus on using at this point in time. The reason being is that the web cluster is very versatile, and it can be used for any of the 5 writing modes that they give to us, including a narrative. So I'd like for you to practice using the web cluster, especially for the prompts that we're going to be doing in our PSTG guide today. So let's look at how this would break down. This is the writing prompt that I had for 8th grade. Today, our workplaces and neighborhoods are composed of people of diverse backgrounds. For this reason, it is important for people to find ways to get along with each other. Write an essay illustrating how people of diverse backgrounds can get along better. So I've read my prompt, so now I would reread my prompt in a much slower, more meaningful way. Now I want to start the cub process. I'm going to circle a word that is bossing me. And the bossy word here is write. So I circle the word write, and then I write the word what above the word write, or a question mark. And then I ask myself, what do they want me to write? So then I have underlined an essay illustrating how people of diverse backgrounds can get along better. That's what they want from me. Now I'm going to do my bracketing. The bracketing that I decided to do is the word illustrating because that tells me I need a piece of evidence. I also bracketed people of diverse backgrounds because that tells me what I'm focusing on. And then I bracketed get along because that's kind of the point of what this prompt is wanting me to do. So then I stop and I think and I summarize, what is this prompt wanting from me? So now I'm going to move from my prompt to my graphic organizer. And I decided and summarized that the main point of this prompt is asking myself, how can people of diverse backgrounds get along better? Once I have figured that out, I move to my 3 points. Please let me say this. Normally, in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, we don't write just 5-paragraph essays. But for the purpose of this test, we need to make very simple essays, and a 5-paragraph essay format works really well. So I'm going to choose 3 points that I want to focus for the body of my paragraphs. And I chose treatment, golden rule, and learn the culture. And then remember it says illustrating. I cannot give my opinion without illustrating or giving evidence of what I believe. So I have my summarization, my 3 points, and 4 points of evidence to include. This translates into my introduction with a summarization of my 3 points. Then this would be paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, and then in my concluding paragraph, I would summarize my 3 points that I've used, restate my thesis sentence, and I have a conclusion. At this point, the majority of my paper has been written. It's very simple. If you follow these steps, you will be able to get a higher score on the writing prompts because you're going to ensure yourself of staying focused on the topic and ensuring yourself of answering exactly what the prompt is asking from you. I'm asking you to practice this method of cubbing and graphic organizing and moving to an outline and then writing your final paper. When you have completed writing your essay, you need to check your work against the rubric. And in your handout and your guide, page 13, is where the rubric starts. So get to know this rubric now. Kind of know what they're expecting from you as a writer on the English II and English III EOIs. For all high school students, this is a good rubric to kind of go over and to learn what makes a good writer. Let's look at it really quick together. The directions here are that written responses receive 2 types of scores, a series of analytic scores that focus on specific aspects of writing. These scores are intended to reflect the student's strengths and weaknesses across specific writing skills. And then they're going to also give a composite score that talks about integrating writing techniques to produce a good overall piece of writing. And then it shows how a student is given 5 analytical scores that focus on specific writing skills. The highest score you can get is a 4, and the lowest score is a 1. If you will look in your guide, you'll see 4, 3, 2, 1. This shows you the highest score they can get and the lowest score they can get. They will take these scores together and then they will make one composite score, and then that's how they receive their score of whether they have passed the EOI or not. The following are the actual scoring rubrics used to assign the 5 analytical scores, so let's look at those. Just here's a list: ideas and development, organization, unity, and coherence, word choice, sentences and paragraphs, and grammar usage and mechanics. Those are in the guide. The first one is ideas and development. If you would please circle ideas and development, and then go to the 4 and circle the 4. I'm going to show you how that breaks down. Look across from the 4 to the right. If I want a score of 4 in ideas and development, I need to make sure my content is well suited for audience purpose and mode. If I have cubbed my prompt, then I am going to get a 4 on that particular aspect because that is what the cubbing of the prompt helps us to do. Is the main idea or thesis clear? If I have used my graphic organizer, summarized the prompt correctly, then my main thesis should be clear and transferred it into my introduction. Are my ideas fully developed and elaborated using details, examples, reasons, and evidence? Again, if you have used the graphic organizer and you have your evidence, then you can get a score of 4. Has the writer expressed an insightful perspective towards this topic? If it's well thought out and your graphic organizer is completely filled out, then you should be able to get a score of 4. Do you see how it relates when you cub your prompt and then when you write the graphic organizer? When you pull them together, those are steps that help you get that score of 4 in each category. The next category you look at is organization, unity, and coherence. If you'll circle that one and then circle a score of 4. I'm not going to go through each one of these 5 sets with you. I'm going to leave that to you. You can pause the video right now and go through those and get familiar with this rubric. Get familiar with what they're expecting of you. There's an old saying, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, and we are giving you the armament necessary to win against this EOI testing. If you turn the page, you'll see the other 3. Please circle those subjects at the top and then look at the 4 and go from there. Okay, these are some directions they've given us. Responses do not meet certain criteria, then they can't be scored. A 0 composite score is given to responses that fall into one of these following categories. No response or just a restatement of the task. Again, if you're cubbing and doing the graphic organizer, that will not be a problem. Please do not write your response in any language other than English. That includes Cleon. Response that is illegible or incomprehensible, and response that is off the topic of the writing test. If you will notice, all 4 of these things can be avoided if we do the cubbing of the prompts and the graphic organizer. Okay, let's look at what a writing task question may look like on the test. And the sample that we're going to look at first is taken from this guide that you can either download or you have in your hand from the school. We're going to turn to page 17. And the first thing I'd like for you to do is to write the word cub at the top of the page. This is to remind you to cub the prompt. Notice it says section 1. Anytime you sit down to take a test, please make sure you are taking the test that you are there for. Please make sure that it says English 1, English 2, English 3, algebra, biology, geometry, whatever you're doing, make sure it says your specific test with your name on it. Note that there are instructions and checkboxes here on this, and I want you to utilize those as you're sitting here doing your prompt today. And then this is your prompt here at the middle bottom of the page. I'd like for you to pause the video right now, and I would like for you to cub the prompt that you have here on page 17. Let's get some practice in. Go ahead and cub this prompt here on page 17. If you cubbed your prompt, then this is what it should be looking like, and then you did your graphic organizer. Did you circle the word write because it's telling you something bossy to do? Did you write the question mark above it? Did you underline the answer to the question, what do they want me to write? They want me to write a persuasive paper to convince your school board that your proposal is the best way to spend money and why. What did you bracket? I hope you bracketed at least as much as I did, maybe even more. Did you bracket a persuasive paper? That tells us what mode we're writing in. Did you bracket school board? That tells us the tone we need for this particular essay. But did you back up? Did you notice they gave us extra information up here in the paragraph before the writing prompt? They gave us valuable information that we need to make sure to utilize in writing our essay. I bracketed improve student life because this is what the focus of using this money is for. I bracketed for the students at your school because I'm talking about students at my school. I'm not talking about students in another country. Then they gave me this little clue. Some people have suggested what? I bracketed a new library, a new computer lab, or a student fitness center. Let me say this. If you have another idea that would make your school better, say a vending machine for Gatorade for the athletes, that's fine. You could spend your time writing an essay on this. But I'm going to ask you to use the contextual clues that they have given you and stick with what they have here. Please write a simple essay that's clear and concise and that they will be able to grade with effective ease. So I would choose either a new library, a new computer lab, or a student fitness center as the focus of my paper. Now I have my graphic organizer to do. If you have not done this, please pause the video and do a graphic organizer. I recommend that you move this information down generically first before you start filling it in. Let me show you what I mean. First, I summarize what that prompt is. What is my proposal? That's what they're asking me to do, and I need to choose one of these three things, library, computer lab, or student fitness center. So that's generically what my proposal is. Then I know I want 3 reasons to support my opinion. So I wrote reason A, reason B, and reason C. And then for each reason, I know I'm going to provide supporting evidence of why that particular thing is a good idea. Now that I've got the bones or the skeleton outlined here with my graphic organizer, I would move on to filling it out with my opinions, how I'm going to persuade people. I'm just going to go through this quick. Well, let's just say I choose a new library. For reason A, I could write, it will help latchkey kids. So I would just write latchkey kids there. Then I would give supporting evidence. Why is this a good idea? I could give evidence. It's a good idea to have a new library for latchkey kids because it would keep them off the streets, keep them safe, give them a safe haven to go to whenever their parents are at work or not at home. See how that's built down? Then whenever I go to do my outline or my actual writing, I have my introductory paragraph. And then in my introductory paragraph, I summarize my 3 reasons. Then I have paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4. And then for my conclusion, all I have to do is restate my stance, and I would summarize my reasons and my points and give a concluding statement. It's persuasive. Don't forget to give them a call to action. Very simple if you follow the steps. And this is how it would move into an outline if you wanted to move it into an outline. The introduction is your proposal, summarizing the 3 reasons you're going to cover. Give a thesis statement. Then your body is reason A, reason B, reason C. And conclusion, restating your proposal, summarizing your 3 points, and then your call to action. During your online writing test, there will be a button at the bottom for you to use. It's called a resource button. And in your resource button, it's going to bring up the writer's checklist. Please make sure you use this. Pause the video and look at the writer's checklist. Notice that many of these things are things that would be covered and you would be able to do if you are cutting your prompts and doing your graphic organizer. If you need a bathroom break, now's the time to take one. Let's move on to section 2. Section 2 is the reading portion. They're going to give you a passage to read and then several multiple choice questions that will test your comprehension of the passage. These questions might also test your knowledge of genres, literary elements, figurative languages, and different types of literary works. You're going to have the following tools available for you to use on the screen during the online portion of the test. As I mentioned, we have a new testing vendor, and these are new tools. So I highly recommend that you go on to their website at this point and get familiar with the layout of the test. This is a contrast button. You can flip the contrast from black to white. This button helps you to change the color of the screen. They have about 10 different options. This button lets you have a highlighter, a yellow highlighter, or a pencil, and I believe the pencil's in black, blue, and red in the calculator button. And this is a blocking button. You can hit this button and it will bring up a blank piece of paper so you can cover your answer if you want to cover your answer so no one can see it. And then you have the cut and copy portion. So let's look really quickly at the breakdown for reading and literature on the EOI test again so you know where you're standing. On the reading and literature portion of the test, literature is 24 to 28%, comprehension is 22 to 28%, and vocabulary is 8 to 11%, and research and information is 8 to 11%. When you add those together and then you add the 33% for writing, you get a total of 100%. I'm going to go through very quickly what each one of these different subheadings mean. The literature portion is about these four things. If you turn to page 6 of your guide, it goes through these standards in a very detailed fashion. I'm just going to summarize them. I highly recommend that all families open up the standards for every grade, for every subject they're working for, and get to know them very well. The first one we're going to look at is literary genres. What are they talking about on literary genres? This will be on page 6 under Standard 3 of Literature. Literary genres can cover something like satire, sonnets, epics, myths, legends, mysteries, editorials, novels, drama, narratives, lyric poetry, essays, and many more. Typically, I've seen a lot of poetry on the test, and I've seen some plays. Just excerpts. What is a literary element? Literary elements are there also on page 6. It is standard 3.2, 3.2a through 3.2e. If you do not know what a lot of these terms mean, please make a star next to 3.2. Go through these and get to know them. Look up the definitions and see if you can remember some of them. You will be amazed at what you recall just from reading the definitions again now, a few weeks before the test. Some of the elements here they're looking at is plot, conflict, character setting, things like this. They look at character traits using different types of literary devices like imagery, allegory, and symbolism. And also, what's the author's purpose of using things like foreshadowing, flashbacks, time, and sequence? Why did they use these things? How do these literary elements contribute to the passages you're reading? Figurative language is standard 3.3a through 3.3c. It's on page 6. Talks about things like analogy, hyperbole, metaphors, personifications, onomatopoeia, and those different types of rhythms and rhymes for sound devices. Literary works kind of is on page 7, and that is standard 3.4a through 3.4d. It kind of talks about the time period that things were written in and the culture. It gives consideration to the time periods and cultures that the authors have written in. Comprehension. Comprehension is covered on page 5 for the standards. That is standard 2 in 2.1 through 2.4 on page 6. It's basically literal understanding, inferences and interpretation, summary and generalization, and analysis and evaluation. Let me stop right here and say this. Your student should be reading in a novel every single day. They need to be keeping their novels close at hand, so if they have a minute or two here or there to stop and read, they need to be doing it. We all have iPads, iPhones, smartphones, computers. We have access to a lot of digital content. And there are a lot of things out there on the internet that allows us to download books for free. We don't have to spend money on them. In our major cities, most of our libraries have digital books that we can borrow as well. Their reading comprehension will increase exponentially if they read books at every minute they get. Because imagine you sit down to read a book at home, you read 5-10 pages, you stick that book in your pocket on the phone, and then when they're at the stoplight driving, or they're standing in line at Quick Trip, they pull out their phone, they read a page or two. Remember, when they pull that phone out to read that one page for just a minute, their brain has to engage and remember everything that they read earlier that day or the day before. So they're doing a major amount of recall on characters and setting and plot. So they're remembering this, and it's calling it back to mind, and this is going to increase their reading comprehension because it's going to bring them into the story and help them to flesh out and fill out that whole storyline. So reading every minute of the possible day that they can between now and the time of their testing is really going to help them on the comprehension part of the test, which is a large percentage of their test. So I highly, highly recommend reading as much as possible between now and the time of the testing. The vocabulary portion is standard 1.1 through 1.5 on page 5 of the handout. These are things that basically they learn through their reading. Roots, prefixes, and suffixes, things that they've learned about reference materials, connotative and denotative meanings, and putting the right word in the right place. I see a lot of questions like, what did this word mean here in this sentence? Why did the author use this word here in the multiple choice question? But it is a small portion of the test, only 8 to 11% of the test. The research portion is on page 7 of the standards. Research and information is standard 4.1 through 4.2. And it's about accessing information and interpreting information. Surely by now they have done research papers, so they understand how to use different types of strategies for accessing information and for interpreting their information. Okay, let's look at some sample selections for section 2. Look on page 26 of your handout, and I'd like for you to pause the video and stop and read this selection. Read the directions first, note the title, note on your selection that there are line numbers. These line numbers are important in helping you answer questions whenever you go on. So please look on page 26 of your handout and take a few minutes to read thunderstorms. Okay, now that you've read that passage for thunderstorms, look at the two questions for sample A and sample B here. I'd like for you to, again, pause the video and take a minute to answer these questions. But before you do, I have a method I would like for you to utilize in doing your multiple choice questions. I will tell you some of these questions have questions and responses that look very close to one another. So the best way to answer a multiple choice question is with elimination. First, you read your question, and then I want you to eliminate two answers. In the online testing portion, there's a little eyeball outside of the answer. When you click that eyeball, it will make that question disappear. This will help you to focus a little better on what you are going to pick as your answer. That will leave you with 2 choices to answer instead of 4. So first, I want you to eliminate 2 and then choose the correct answer from the 2 that are left. You may think you already know the answer and can get it really quick. That's okay. Please do the elimination method anyway. Pause the video and take a few minutes to answer these 2 questions. Okay, did you get these answers? To sample A, the answer is C, and to sample B, the answer is G. Now, I want you to know how these relate to the standards. If you look in the back of your book, there's an answer key. I don't want you to cheat and use the answers for the rest of these, but I do want you to know how it relates to the standards that we talked about in the beginning. This and sample A covers standard 3.3A in writing, grammar, usage, and mechanics, Sample BG is the answer to G, and it covers 2.4b in writing, grammar, usage, and mechanics. That's how this relates to the standard, objective, and skill. So on page 41, it has the item number, the correct answer, the strand, and the standard. So that's how this relates to the standards that I was teaching you to use at the beginning of the boot camp. Okay, let's do another one. Let's turn to page 32 in your guide. It's the Solitary Reaper. I'd like for you to pause the video and go ahead and do the Solitary Reaper, read it, and answer the questions, making sure you take your time and that you eliminate at least 2 answers in the questions that follow the Solitary Reaper. Okay, these are the answers for these passages. Number 6 was G, 7 was C, 8 was J, 9 was C, and 10 was F. One of the things I want to point out to you are the underlined words in these questions. These underlined words gives us clues, and this is one of the main reasons why I want you to utilize the elimination method. This says which is most likely, and then this question says best shows. And then this question says use most in this poem. And this one says this poem can best be described. That means there may be more than one answer that looks correct in this problem. So when we do elimination, it helps us to choose the correct answer. Now I want to say this, if you do not know which answer it is, mark it on the test, click your answer after your elimination. At the top, bookmark that question and come back to it. But please don't spend more than 2 or 3 minutes on any question on your test. The more time you spend on a question, the more time and more likely it is that you're going to talk yourself out of the right answer anyway. Go with the answer you feel is best after you've done your elimination. Testing has proven that any student who sits there beyond the first hour of the testing, their test scores usually drop. And it's not because they're not getting the answer or don't know the answer. It's usually because they're talking themselves out of the correct answer because they're second guessing themselves. So please use the elimination method and then choose the best answer. If you don't know what it is, if you're not sure, again, bookmark that question to come back to it. Okay, I want to go online and look at the state practice test with you. And this is the state practice test. This is our new vendor, Measured Progress. So you can go to this web address. When you go there, you'll use the username practice and the password Oklahoma. So let's go to this website right now and take a quick look at it.